Welcome to Ian Cinema, your destination for endless entertainment and unforgettable movie moments. Discover exciting films, inspiring stories, and cinematic journeys across every genre. Whether you love action, drama, thrillers, or timeless favorites, there's always something waiting for you here. Sit back, enjoy the experience, and let Ian Cinema bring the magic of movies to your screen. In this video, we'll take an in-depth look at the Bourne Ultimatum. We'll explore the film's storyline, summarize its gripping plot, and introduce the main cast and their characters. We'll also discuss the movie's production, its impressive box office performance, and its critical reception before sharing our overall thoughts and review. So, let's get started. Produced by Universal Pictures, The Bourne Ultimatum was released in North America on August 3, 2007. The film opened to an outstanding $69.2 million during its first weekend, setting a new record for the biggest August opening in the United States at the time. While all three films in the original Bourne trilogy were both commercial and critical successes, The Bourne Ultimatum became the only installment to receive Academy Award nominations. It won all three of its nominations at the 80th Academy Awards, taking home Oscars for Best Film Editing, Best Sound, and Best Sound Editing. The story picks up immediately after Jason Bourne apologizes to Irina Nevsky, the daughter of Vladimir Nevsky, whose death was linked to Bourne's past during the Treadstone program. Still recovering from his injuries, Bourne secretly breaks into a medical clinic for treatment, but Moscow police quickly surround the building. When two officers corner him, Bourne effortlessly overpowers them, knocking one unconscious while holding the other at gunpoint. Choosing not to kill either of them, he escapes and disappears into the night. 6 weeks later, Simon Ross, a security correspondent for The Guardian, meets with CIA source Neil Daniels at London's Waterloo station to discuss a new lead involving the secretive Treadstone program. After visiting Paris to inform Martin Kreutz, the brother of his late girlfriend Marie, about her death, Bourne travels to London. There, he arranges to meet Simon Ross at the south entrance of Waterloo station, unbeknownst to Ross. However, he is already under intense CIA surveillance, setting the stage for another thrilling chase. The story begins when journalist Simon Ross unknowingly comes under surveillance after mentioning the secret Operation Blackbriar during a phone call with his editor. The conversation is intercepted by the CIA's monitoring system, alerting Deputy Director Noah Vosen that the highly classified operation may have been compromised. After receiving a call from Jason Bourne, Ross takes a taxi to Waterloo Station in London. There, Bourne notices CIA agents tailing Ross. To avoid surveillance, Bourne secretly slips Ross a prepared mobile phone and guides him through the crowded station, instructing him on how to evade the agents. However, Vosen has already dispatched assassin pods to eliminate both Ross and his source. Meanwhile, CIA analyst Nicky Parsons identifies Bourne on the security camera, recognizing him as the former Treadstone operative. Mistakenly believing Ross is Bourne's contact, the CIA closes in. Haz positions himself with a sniper rifle as Bourne repeatedly warns Ross to stay hidden. Panicked, Ross ignores the instructions and runs into the open, giving Paz a clear shot. Ross is fatally wounded. Before escaping, Bourne retrieves Ross's notes, which identify his source as Neil Daniels, a CIA official connected to Operation Blackbriar. Vosen orders a team to capture Bourne while assigning Pamela Landy to assist in locating Daniels. Their investigation leads them to Daniels's office in Madrid, but Bourne arrives first. Inside, he finds only a safe containing cash and photographs, confirming that Daniels has already fled. When CIA agents enter the office, Bourne incapacitates one of them before Nicky Parsons unexpectedly arrives. She reveals that she has been transferred to Madrid following the Berlin incident and that Daniels has escaped to Tangier. Choosing to help Bourne, Nicky misleads the arriving CIA team by claiming Bourne has already left, allowing them to escape together. In Tangier, Vosen sends another assassin, Deshbuksani, to eliminate Daniels. Nicky uses her official CIA clearance to send Vish a false message. enabling Bourne to follow him directly to Daniels' location. Once Vosen realizes Daniels has been discovered, he orders Dish to kill both Daniels and then eliminate Nikki and Bourne. Pamela Landy is deeply disturbed by Vosen's willingness to sacrifice innocent lives simply to protect the operation. Although Bourne manages to track Dish, he is unable to save Daniels, who is killed by a bomb planted by the assassin. Dish then heads after Nikki, but Bourne pursues him across the rooftops and through the streets of Tangier. After a brutal hand-to-hand fight, Bourne strangles Dish with a towel, ending the chase. Knowing they were both now targets, Bourne and Nikki part ways. On a crowded street, Bourne quietly tells her, "It gets easier," referring to the skill of disappearing into a crowd. While examining the papers Daniels left behind, Bourne discovers an address connected to Blackbriar in New York City. Bourne flies to New York and deliberately uses a passport that alerts the CIA to his arrival. While secretly observing Pamela Landy, he sends her a text message requesting a meeting. Vosen intercepts the message and sends agents to follow Landy, believing they will finally capture Bourne. However, the meeting is only a diversion. While the CIA focuses on Landy, Bourne slips into Vosen's office and steals classified Blackbriar documents. Realizing he has been deceived after receiving a phone call from Bourne, Vosen frantically orders every available CIA agent to his office. Bourne escapes, leading to an intense car chase involving CIA agents and Paz. The pursuit ends in a violent crash. Although Paz has the chance to kill Bourne, Bourne instead spares his life and walks away. Outside the former Treadstone facility, Bourne meets Nikki one last time and gives her the stolen Blackbriar documents before entering the building himself. Meanwhile, Vosen finally realizes that Pamela Landy secretly provided Bourne with the facility's address by disguising it as his date of birth during their earlier conversation. Before leaving, Landy quietly faxes copies of the stolen Blackbriar files to the media and government authorities, ensuring the truth will become public. Inside the facility, Bourne confronts Dr. Albert Hirsch, the man responsible for the psychological conditioning program that created Treadstone. Through Hirsch's guidance, Bourne finally remembers his past. Before becoming Jason Bourne, he was Captain David Webb, a U.S. Army officer who willingly volunteered for the program. To prove his commitment, he murdered an innocent man in cold blood, completing the transformation into the assassin known as Jason Bourne. Shocked by the memories of his actions, Bourne tells Hirsch, "I remember everything. I'm no longer Jason Bourne." CIA agents storm the facility, forcing Bourne to flee onto the rooftop. Paz catches up with him and holds him at gunpoint. Confused, Paz asks why Bourne spared his life. Bourne replies, "Do you even know why you're supposed to kill me? Look at us. Look at what they make you give." The words echo the dying statement of another assassin known as the Professor, reminding Paz that they are both victims of the same program. Realizing the truth, Paz lowers his weapon. Just then, Noah Vosen appears and shoots at Bourne. Bourne drives from the rooftop into the East River below, disappearing beneath the water. Sometime later, Nikki watches a television news report revealing that Operation Blackbriar has been exposed. Noah Vosen has been arrested, and CIA Director Ezra Kramer is under investigation by the U.S. Senate for his role in the illegal program. The report also states that Jason Bourne was shot and fell into the East River, but despite several days of searching, no body has been recovered. Nikki smiles, knowing Bourne is still alive. In the film's final scene, Bourne is shown swimming away beneath the waters of the East River, escaping once again. The ending deliberately mirrors the opening of the Bourne identity, symbolizing that while Jason Bourne's past has finally been uncovered, David Webb is now free to begin a new life. The opening sequence of the Bourne Ultimatum continues directly from the ending of the Bourne Supremacy, picking up after the Russian police pursue Jason Bourne through Moscow. This follows Bourne's emotional apology to Irina Neskay's daughter for the murder of her parents in the previous film. Another powerful moment comes when Bourne tells Nikki Parsons about Marie's death. The scene closely mirrors the ending of the Bourne Supremacy, where Bourne confesses his past actions to Neskay's daughter. After Bourne warns Nikki that she must go on the run, she cuts and dyes her hair to disguise herself, echoing the transformation Bourne made after Marie's death. During the intense car chase later in the film, Bourne's vehicle is destroyed in a sequence reminiscent of the dramatic car crash from the Bourne Supremacy. The Bourne Ultimatum was a major box office success, earning $69.2 million during its opening weekend and setting a new record for the biggest August opening at the time. By September 2008, the film held a 93% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, based on 202 positive reviews out of 217, making it the highest-rated film in the Bourne trilogy. It also received a Metacritic score of 85 out of 100, again outperforming its two predecessors. By the end of its theatrical run, the film had become the highest-grossing entry in the series. Despite its widespread acclaim, the movie received criticism for its extensive use of shaky handheld camera work. In an otherwise positive review, film critic Richard Corliss remarked that the camera often seemed to suffer from Parkinson's, arguing that the constant movement distracted viewers from the action instead of enhancing it. The film also drew attention in the United Kingdom for featuring a fictional journalist from the real British newspaper The Guardian and for its portrayal of London's Waterloo railway station. Reviewers at The Guardian found the depiction amusing, noting that the experiences of the fictional reporter, Simon Ross, reflected situations that real Guardian journalists could easily imagine. The Bourne Ultimatum appeared on numerous critics' lists of the best films of 2007, with many praising it as one of the year's finest action films. At the 80th Academy Awards, it won 3 Oscars, the second highest number of awards earned by any film that year. The awards included A Sense Best Film Editing A Christopher Rouse, A Sense Best Sound Mixing A Scott Millen, David Parker, and Kirk Francis, A Sense Best Sound Editing A Karen Baker Landers and Per Hallberg. Before the film's release in May 2007, Matt Damon stated that he had no interest in returning for a fourth Bourne film, saying that he and director Paul Greengrass had taken the character as far as they could. However, the enormous critical and commercial success of the Bourne Ultimatum quickly sparked speculation that another installment would eventually be made. On February 22, 2008, Variety reported that a fourth Bourne film was in development, with both Damon and Greengrass expected to return. However, on March 9, 2008, both men stated that they had not yet agreed to make another Bourne film, leaving the future of the franchise uncertain at that time. Damon stated, "I have a lot of things that would have to happen before we would go sign in for it." On June 25, 2008, producer Frank Marshall and Putta Crowley said in the interview, "Judah, hopefully they will be shooting next summer for a release in 2010, and our favorite anti-hero is apparently headed to South America." On October 16, it was announced that George Noyeli would write a script with Frank Marshall producing and Jeffrey Vinard and Henry Madison executive producing. Matt Damon, Julia Stiles and Paul Greengrass are also attached to the film. Few movies heroes define 21st century Hollywood better than Jason Bourne. Created by Robot Legion, the character portrayed by the German in all week adaptations originally featured in 3 of the author's novel releases between the 1980 to 99, followed by 11 novels written by Eric Van 2004 and 2019 entry by Brian Freeman since 2020. At the moment, fans will be glad to know that another installment is being developed, but how have the movies performed at the box office? Distributed by Universal Picture. Most of the Bourne movies have engaged thanks to the quality of each picture and the constant release of raw reading material. Thanks to the quality of each picture and the constant release of new reading material, here's how the box office numbers look for each Jason Bourne film ranked for lowest to highest. Attempt to develop a Jason Bourne movie began as early as 911, but plans were hampered by the usual cycle of development held until Doug Liman's shout interest in universes took over the rights from Bourne and Rose. We where he described to reborn identity the fascinating story of a man Willis Ichnattakania who was rescued by a fisherman in the sea. He goes on a mission to find out who he truly is while at it. He gets hunted by the assassin and uncovers a major Czech conspiracy. Lerman had initially approached bigger names like Brodicrow, released in December of 2002. The Bourne identity was up against stronger competition, especially from 20, which catered to same spy action demographic, A Man in Black to Spider-Man, Star Wars The Episode 2 Attack of the Clones, and A Power and Gold member had also been released around the same time. So there were plenty of forces for Bourne to a battle. Thankfully the film's power to, which is known in movie energy and aerofail history, it managed the set number that guaranteed a sequel. The Bond Jesse is a Just Bourne movie with Just Bourne. The character is shown in the picture and mentioned several times. Matt Damon chose not to do another movie if Paul Klein was not returning. So the studio showed him to beside and cast Germany tender. Here Aaron Cross, an agent of a program known as Outcome, leads a quiet studio. Soon his peace gets disrupted when Eric B., the man who built the unit, decided to eliminate everyone on it. Demanders the Bourne legacy number are low for different franchise, which make us a sense making a Bourne movies. Bourne was a movie guaranteed to line a section of Friends. Furthermore, Germany Sinner was not as big an actor than Asa he is now. Still, the fourth installment remains an unrated spy movie. Ronaldo adores himself and so does the rest of the cast. Fellows is born everywhere and then the Bourne supremacy. He happened to be enjoying life in India until the Russian agent Carol frames him for the theft of the millions of dollars from the CIA. Carol begins hunting Bond, intending to kill him, and while at a bullet mean for his titular hero ends up killing his girlfriend Mary. The iconic "That Killed My Lover" dropped OS play out with B swinging Wagonis Willie also attempting to prove his innocence. Given how entertaining the first entry has been, people bought tickets in a number eager to see what Bourne would be next, nominated for the numerous accolades including 3 awards. This smart cynical installment function as both a present critic of the American intelligence system and a refreshingly perspective action trailering a cast member also do full justice to a director Paul Gingas betting supreme play. Unsurprisingly, the film spent 8 of its first 9 weeks in the top 10 at the domestic box office, chosen by the National Board of Theatre Review as one of the top 10 film of 2007. The Bourne Ultimatum will find a Jason Bourne in painful mood when an investigative journalist working for The Guardian learns about the controversial program. He does some digging and Bourne was to give him all the information he needs to make his former paymaster play. However, things get dangerous as sinister figures an assassin to hunt down both Bourne and the journalist. Although it shares a title with Roberta Ladler 1990 best-selling novel, its plot is entirely different. However, there's not necessarily a bad atmospheric, at times even lyrical. This visually arresting space action film makes as a ponderous socialist issue unlike the range of the conformity, the certainty of change and the desire to do the right thing with its $4,400 million a worldwide cross and guest in measured of $110 million. The Bourne because Matt Damon's higher crossing film with him also he did $69,000 opening weekend gross also made it the highest August opening weekend beating at the show. Edward keep the record of hoping 7 years until it was overtaken by James Gunn Guardians of Galaxy in 2014. Matt Damon's return to the franchise came as total surprise. He must have missed, but so did he franchisee this time. Paul King chose not to go with the Bourne whatever as a title. He went with a simple James Bourne and it worked. At the start of the movie we are reminded of the fact that the sim is either too important or Bourne is too good. The agency still has not been able to capture him, so the sandy head of cybersecurity hate to hunt him down. Meanwhile Bourne tries to uncover secret about his father. Jason Bourne is an affecting, beautifully photographed story about a familiar character. Greengrass handled very commendably restrained and a tenderness or fitting of the picture with more dialogue and astonish imagery than was the case of before. Consequently, The film became a major commercial hit, almost tripling its budget. Worldwide, the movie home opened at first place in 50 markets, making it the most successful film in the franchise of note. It was also the second biggest Hollywood release of 2016 for movies that did not involve comic book, superhero or animated atmosphere media. Matt Damon's major box office hit ahead of its big game predecessor Paul Jenkins directed from Tony Gary's Bourne. The Bourne Ultimatum box office also expected Paul Jenkins' starting Matt Damon has turned out to be a major summer heat. The Bourne Supremacy and the Bourne Ultimatum have an overlap in their respective time frame, but it is only that is easily explained. 2002. The Bourne identity introduces Jason Bourne, a man afflicted with a mania who gradually comes to discover that he is deadly assassin, based on Robert Downey's 1988 novel. The Bourne identity success returning as Bourne in various sequel, beginning with Bourne Supremacy in 2004. The Bourne name would follow in 2007 with Bourne and Captain Judd expose the inflicted Treadstone as a scene program in the Bourne Supremacy and the Bourne Ultimatum. Jason Bourne also finds in Atlanta Deputy Director Pamela Landry, while a key scene, a phone call between the Bourne and Land shown in the Bourne films takes their time on a somewhat pressing, is actually very easy to clarify. The exact time frame of the Bourne Ultimatum story places it 6 weeks after the ending of the Bourne Supermassive. Overlap between the two beings established in the better ending scene. In the Bourne Interate Supermassive, overlap between the two being established in the letters ending scene in the Bourne Supremacy's final scene. Landy revealed to the Bourne that has a real as David Webb. Bourne conversating with the landing phone in Jason building and looking into her face, then tells her that Sam passed by. You look tired, before vanishing into a Sata crowd. This very scene is repeated fairly late in the Bourne Ultimatum, with the more events happening in the background not seen in the Bourne Supremacy. Considering that the Bourne Ultimatum is less 6 weeks after its predecessor, some have been left confused by the scene placed in the chronology of the B's franchises. However, while used as an ending in the Bourne Superman, the scene of Bourne and the landing, a conversation is not taking place exactly when it seems to. While it would be easier to infer that Bourne and Land's final scene in the Bourne Supremacy takes place directed after the ending of the movies, as it is actually a flash forwarded to 6 weeks in the future. The scene preceding it are Bourne visiting the daughter of one of his victims is Moscow puts the events of the two movies into context. Bourne would have led to have taken time to travel from the US to Russia to begin with, while the Bourne Ultimatum itself began with Jason's Bourne facing new opponents in Mexico. Essentially, the Bourne Supremacy final thing takes place well into the story of the Bourne Ultimatum, while not overtly revealing the time frame of Bourne and the Land conversation. The Bourne Ultimatum may start 6 weeks after the Bourne Supremacy main story concludes, but the scene of the Bourne and Land is very relevant to the events of the Bourne Ultimatum. Willie the series stars Matt Damon may not have got for the Bourne Ultimatum suck upon the sequel's releases had been kind to the supply trailer. Geopolitical thrillers tend to age poorly. The rapid pace of our events means that movies that had a rare finger on the pulse of current event releases can become king. Were they and outdated within a few years, Willie teams they may have fans felt vastly irrelevant and timeless can end up dating a movie horribly when its part plot proves less present than expected. However, this is not always the case. While all the Dresses Bourne movies set a high standard for spy trailer thriller, the third installment of the Paranoid Sports 9x11 Age franchise has aged better than any of his other writing. This is ironic because while the Bourne Ultimatum was a critical hit upon releases, its messy production process was made by a lot of behind-the-scenes reshuffling. This has eventually led to some public drama when the movie star admitted that he did not care for it. How he died ended up aging surprisingly poorly, as the Bourne Ultimatum story only proved increasingly draining a year. When the Bourne Ultimatum was released in 2007, Matt Damon did not popularize a show with his secret. However, in a 2012 interview, A Diamond Card screenwriter Tony Glory's secret for the sequel embarrassing and claimed Thea draft would end Glory career wary Diamond to make it publicity available. However, Bourne's influence on the James Bond movies in the upcoming year would speak for itself. Not only was he born into mid-July 2017, the tone is all wrong and I regret the limited choreographical focus if me is right, and the end of July. There had been 12 films released in the summer of 2017 and now lucky number 13 Thea Bones. So let's quickly recap. Jason Bourne, a demon, has been chased up and sideways through a Europe first in a film that was a blissfully low-tech high-intelligence spy thriller, then in a film that was even toward high intelligence and featured one of the great torque chases in cinema history. Thea's a trilogy capper rather predictably. I almost takers on the photog side, at least, and Joe it is extremely brainy for a summer film, or at least incurably a subject and who really wants to split their differences for design, and Leslie a thrilling action capper that is fact of fandom on the tendency in Americana government, a fact that is weird into every moment of conflict while being so uncountable. That is a fact is rather like having Paul Gross come over at the end of the movie and whisper you notice it was about fascism and you're all definitely wait what. Mostly it is not about politics, it's about assumed that essentially Too Proud is running from the CIA and trying to find clues to his lost identity. Act that some are more acta in good food be called sates the area more like situations that just born hasa to wiggle out of the Miami and a necessity usually involving action or action like Bourne is not is like Thea maintaining the other line for 2 hours. The film has only two modes: quickly a moving or stressed out passes, and for just about every second of it running a time maybe not the first 3 minutes for their boss is a completely relentless. Once the flow of action sequences begin, it never flags, not for one moment, until the story resolve itself, and then maybe even a little bit after that. The first two films talk the body burn life of a constant running, always looking over his shoulder. This films doesn't have to talk, hardly has time to talk. Is just to the character and the artist or Isa ragged so many where to credit this. Here he is Stony Glory clock or perfectly sake of the practice has done him well, which says not a single moment on things we already know, things we don't need to know, instead giving a scene open scene of Thea happening, or the editing which is fast enough to make has cliches of a style seem useless, mostly as Jing Roses in his truly all shaky cam door to Dada that handled his less audic camera that he got any trouble for indie Bourne super messy. Personally I loved it there, but not everybody though, and is a run of Thea new film I recall a lot of fun charter. Please show there is just one shot I want to share, not the best in the film mind you, but one that leaves out as me when I think back over it. At one point fairly earlier, Bourne is running after an assassin out to kill Nike persona who has finally flipped away from the chapter 2 movie when he left her. She was sitting at a cafe table once their immediate danger is obvious. He runs back to that cafe to find her in a sharda that is somewhere between Pio and over the shoulder. Bonnie runs for sneaky table, glancing down to see her phone and on the ground, and he keeps running. Thea Short is known for a correction of fast second and for not an instant ISO anything in frame focus properly. Don ISO movies to show something that important and that we are supposed to recognize it, and then to not film his focus ISO upsetting almost, and it's what I love about the Greengrass is approaching to this material here and in the last room, but much more effectively he gives us the unsettled and edge. 3 are precious films moment in the historia of the art from where the mere fault of an unfocused ISO shot can shows up the viewers underline, and that is why Greengrass's Annie Bones ultimately matter. I have maybe written myself into an academic role where these next words will seem disingenuous, but it's also a damn much fun to watch. Admittedly there is no single moment with some scene or fam, and I love movies alone aesthetic gorgeous. From the second film there is a gorgeous, but this is shorter and much more violent, but it actually does not need to be the whole thing start to finish. Has that feeling you just don't really get a chance to think about it until it's over, and for of course does she delight that transcendent criticism of watching action doing what they do extraordinary well. Obviously films and we don't need any more words praising Adarm's work in the title role, and Jonah Allen is not much of a surprise after her complete track in this last film, but she is a newcomer as David Sranton as a bloodless seaman chasing Bourne as the perfections itself, and Patty Smyth's role as a legacy purporter is honey for a teeny tiny Christmas subset of fan movie buffs, among whom I remember that give all excited every drum we get a chance to see Patty confidence in anything sitting down of the bi-weekly movie. We flicked through the say channels and could not find anything really good on that we had not seen. We decided to watch the Bourne Ultimatum in high-def account as a viewing experience. I've hasheroid watching it was then all how much of the movie I would forget since the first damn side. That's not to say the movie is cap. It's just the cinematic equivalent of junk food. We quickly easy tasty. You don't think too hard about it. Not particularly filling watching it is at all for the first time. I was blown away by time Seda at Virio Sessiono's chase through Morocco and the final car chase through New York. The film does these astonishingly well, trying to get a fancy stunt work, setting the soundtrack and just the perfect amount of cutting. Not too much, not too little as action in movies go. It is a very good example and comes highly recommended. The only complaint lies in the overly complicated attempt at plot, as ever a secret agent forgot Jason's on the ice trying to pieces together his past. The film is well constructed as part of the trilogy and picking up in the midst of the action, but new viewers may be a bit loss as a conclusion to the saga. It's a little meticulous and simplistic, but I arguably a claim that could be made of the series as a whole. Even the final derivations about porn is recommended in a black barrier does not add unnecessary a shade of a great touring proceeding. The bumbling CIA tops at home played by the Oscar-nominated actors. The film seems to portray its antagonist as power without an icing of genuine convention or belief. Of course, this was present in the other two films, but maybe Chris Cooper and the Brain were better at the studying than his films assemble. Of course, this is a film where the good guy goes the guardian. In short, it's not feel like OBS has traveled it particularly far in the span of the films, or here has he answered his own questions. He know his name before he introduced him, but he know little of what he really was. All he really joined in a seemingly a middle management of America's Intelligence Bureau. The cast make the most of the role any humanity, and Bourne is abroad to be followed by the M.O. managed to do despite a relatively small amount of dialogue. He's a man of the action, not John Allen is ever fantastic with a relatively light Lord Albert Finney. Glover Sklen seems constantly disappointed, and David Statesman is a little self-righteous a while out of his depth. No member of the cast plays outside their comfort zone, and not that their performer as weak, just that no one with the possible exception of Diamond stands out as entertaining. A fantasy states and ponding thus story is a historic and simplistic to reach the depth there seem to seek takes. It is a raping action adventure with amazing Seda faces. It works wonderfully. Those you looking for a subtle examination of the American intelligence gathering community in anything but black and white terms will be disappointed. All in all, better overall than the Bourne Identium, the third party of the trilogy following the adventure of amazing spy Just Bourne. It is directed by Paul and features and assembles of a mad drama. You add David Some City Don't Fall bi-weekly, a movie where Foley Cognizant could not find anything really good on that we have not seen when decided to watch the Ultimatum is high up at count as a new viewing experience is drawing. Watching Ida, I was stunned at how much of the movie I would forget, and since the first test time I saw it, that's not to say the movie I see a scrub is just cinematic a valiant of junk food, quickly easy tasty. If you don't like to hard about it, not a particularly filling watching it is also show for this time I was blown away by the set piece of Low Sessions a CH show Morocco and the final car chase. Your work the film it is this is well trying to get a fancy stunt work or stating soundtrack and just a perfect amount cutting, not too much not little, an action movie go. It is very good example and come as a highly recommendable. The only complaint lies in the overly complicated attempt to add plot as ever adds while secret agent come to listen for is trying to pieces together as past the film is well constructed as part of trilogy trying to loose ends and picked up in the midst of the action but your viewer may be a bit lost as a conclusion to the saga. It's a little simplistic but that is arguably a claim that could be made of the series as a whole. Even the final elevations about Bernie's race requirement meant Tina Black Bear does not add a necessary shade of grey to the poor setting. Thea bumbling Sats played by the Oscar-nominated actor are never imbued with any sense of depth or character. The film instead seems intended to portray its antagonist. In short, he does not feels like Bourne has travelled particularly far in the span of films or has he answered his own his questions. He knows his name before he enters scam but he know little for who he's really all he's really done Nina seeming regard the management of America's chief intelligence barrier. The cast make the most of the roles on humanity and Brun is brought to be for by a German who managed to do that despite a relatively small amount of dialogue. He's man of the action not worse. Damagia Joan Allen is as ever fantastic with a relatively light role. Albert Finney Glover's impressively skull-glanced scams Isa entertaining defensively stage and ponding. The story is too crude and simply stick to the displays seem to seek take it easy. It is a rowing action adventure with amazing set pieces. It works wonderfully. Those looking for a subtle examination of the American intelligentsia gathering community in anything but or black and white terms will be disappointed. All in all, better overall than the Bourne Identity, but weaker than the Bourne Supremacy. The Bourne Ultimatum is the third part of the trilogy following the adventure of N6 by Johnson Bourne. This acted by Paul and Farrah assembles Matt Damon. While series star Simon may not have cared for the Bourne Ultimatum script upon the sequel's release, Doctor has been kind to his sphere. A geopolitical thriller tend to age boldly. The rapid pace of world events mean that movies that had their finger on the pulse of current events upon hero release can become cringe-lauded within a few years. While seems that it may have once felt irrelevant and the timeless can end up dating a less present than expected. However, this is not always the case. While all the Jackson's Bourne movies set a high standard for spice thriller, the short installment of the Paranoid Post 911 exponent franchise has better than any of its other outing. This is ironic because while the Bourne Ultimatum was a critical hit upon releases, a massive production process was married by a lot of the behind-the-scenes reaction led to some public drama when the movie star admitted that he did not care for it. A comment that ended up purging surprisingly poorly as the Bourne Ultimatum story only proved increasingly timely with each passing year. When Bourne's Ultimatum was released in 2007, Madam did not publicize his show with his script. However, in 2012 interview, Damon called the sequels embarrassing and he claimed that a draft would end Glory career will damn to make it publicity available. However, Bourne's influence on the James Bond movies in the coming year would speak up for itself. Not only was Bourne Ultimatum not considered an embarrassment, ironically, Bourne's Ultimatum ended up proving a more president political thriller than many of German's more serious dramatic project. Nothing is cooler than tar films that are part of a series take played in a real term very close to only another despite their release being a few years apart. That's previously worth a Reborn Supremacy and Reborn Ultimatum did back in 2004 and 2007 based on the Robert level of the Samia name. The success of 2002 The Bourne Identity who comes to realizes that he is barely assassin generate to see that have been dissected for how close in real time the plot line are to one another. The reason why many fix that D-line very perplexing is that the same name scene appears also in The Boss Supremacy and The Ultimata the same. They may have thrown hardcore Bourne fans and fair waiter ones for a loop center around when Bourne F and Alien CIA jet directed by Land. The first time we see this scene is at the end of The Bourne Supremacy. In the scene, Lanja takes a call from Bourne where she reveals his real name to be David B. Bourne then says to Landy that some pasta you look dead. Then we realizes that he is in building close by watching her. The Bourne Ultimatum at the time supposed it to be the big conclusion to the Emma assassin arc in the year to come. In the third film in the franchise, Bourne attempted to expose the war doings of the Treadstone's assassin in program. The time frame between the two films is only 6 weeks. The final scene is super messy with Thea Bourne landing is loosely repeated in the back half of the Ultimatum. That's seeing some hour overlap between the two film and meaning some plot points or the ultimate may have happened off a screen in Superman. It's easy to think that the final scene in the second film is indeed certain. The time frame between the two films is only 6 weeks. The final scene in the super messy with the Bourne and Landy is loosely repeated in the black half of the ultimate. Was signifying more overlap between the two films and meaning some plot points of the ultimate may have happened if Karina in Superman. It's easy to think that the final scene in the second film is indeed the last of that certain adventure. It's actually a flash forward to what would develop in the third act of the third installment, the scene that processes Ida where Bourne visited daughter one he victim in Russia helps paint the picture more clearly. The Bourne Ultimatum begins in Russia prior to him leading back to the US. The Bourne Ultimatum may be bending term at first glance when Ida fits the scene into its blood, but is actually a tactic of great success in writing. We never truly know the timeline of when Land and Bourne's conversion takes place until it hits the USA right in the face in the third film. See for yourself just how effective both films are dreaming on Peacock. The Bourne identity wastes absolutely no time getting right to the heart of his drama. As the movie opens, we get to see late as night as a known man lies face down, bullet holes in his back, after being rescued by some Italian fishermen. He sets out to be discovered just who is and why he ended up in this predicament in the first place. The only trouble is he is a marked man. Assassins are after him and he soon finds himself on the run awaiting the authorities while wrestling with his troubled unknown past. As we soon find out, a man in the Watcher is God by the name of Justice Bourne, an extremely competent cover cooperative who's suffering from anemia after being a regular following a position. But getting ahead of ourselves here, we will circle back to his later on, but now there is a more pressing issue at hand, specifically that involving the Treadstone. Operation Treadstone is the code name for a Black Ops program. In a novel that's unknown as Treadstone 71, and it's a top-secret Black Ops program kept under top secrecy. This program essentially recruits USA services member and turns them into a nearly Superman assassin. Highly controversial, the methods here include a behavior and modification program to break down morality and effective make these living weapon. It's worth noting that we see a lot more of this in Bourne Ultimatum. This would also explain the enormous headache that Bourne and his associates suffer from Type 5 sniper assist later on the movie, who becomes a terrible headache he suffers from. After awaiting Swiss police, Bourne offer 20k to Mary Curtis, a 26-year-old German woman, to drive him to Paris. He knows he has a financial issue and she is erratically living from place to place. According to a CM operative who learned to her, she pops a brigade erratically. Anyway, Mari agrees to help him drive to his residence in Paris, where they learn some more about his shadow for life. Unfortunately, he is not alone and assassin bustin', but Bourne defeat him with Ben. Whatever does anyway, he does not get much from him, say for a wanted poster, as a man suddenly springs up and launches himself off the balcony to his death. Now while all this is going on, the head of the Treadstone Canunclina activates all his best agent to bring a Bourne in a body bag by Snan. He is under extreme pressure from Deputy Director Upboard, who has problems of his own following a field assassination attempt on African director called W.S. and the film progress. Snipes of the posta started to blood through after dispatching several different operator, including that aforementioned, and Sniper Bourne managed to track down Conclus with his logistic technician. Nike persons he holds and bought up at gunpoint and demanded truth. Cole revealed that Bourne was given the mission to assassinate Worm Soul. He used the ISF Jones Michael to gather the intel needed to bring the fiery woman he was him. After choosing the streaking a point out Simbi's flashback where he had a Wormsoy at gunpoint, however, Bourne lost his nerve really seeing Wormsoy surrounded by his children and field a shot in the back during his escape and falling into the sea. He chose his scheduled isolated spot as it would make it seem like one of the Warmen he killed rather than the sea ranging ahead. Anyway, this catches up to the moment at the start of the film explaining what happened to bring up into the watcher in the film place. After learning the truth, Bourne decided to resign from TWS and warns Kling now to follow him. After dispatching a bunch of guns and rode to the house, Bourne leaves. But there is one final twist to come. Throughout the movie we have seen snaps of another operative lurking in the shadow ready to pounce thanks to some clever editing. We are ready to deliver that this guy is going to kill a Bourneman in reality. He steps out his car and confronts Kunglen shooting him in various terms with a silenced pistol. He was not actually under orders from Kenny but instead hired by Albert, who decided to clean up this mess once and for all. Congrats across the organization exploiting the Treadstone, costing the company precious resources and money as well as leaving the whole operation industry. Killing him seems like the most logical way of resolving this. Abash zones address rooms before pitching his new project to condemned Operations Black Barrier to a committee. We will see more of that in the Bourne Ultimatum. After Al telling Mary to live and let him deal with the Treadstone alone, and Bourne drag it on Maria, and finally he's drag it up in a scooter renting shop in a Monday. The two reunite on the Greek island and seemingly live happily ever after. But will that change in the sequel? Thanks for reading or editing. Explain article. The ending of the Bond legacy could not guarantee a return for Germany vanish, but it for Matt Damon's fourth outing as a Therzia operative, the only movie in the Bourne series not to be featured Damon. The Bourne legacy is set around the same time as a Bourne Ultimatum. Rena starred as a genetically enhanced CIA agent under the Black Ops program called Operations Outcome. However, Bourne Ultimatum events yielding to public explorer of Coversia Operation Outcome members like Ross must run for their life. The situation's only versions as cross-independent and performance-enhancing films called Gems. The Bond legacy is directed by the Tanya Gilroy, who served as the primary second writer for the first two Bourne movie. The 2012 action thriller boosts a stellar cast including Oscar nominees Jeremy Renner and Edward Norton and Oscar winner Rachel Weisz, but it was still met with a mixed review compared to his predecessor via Rotten Tomatoes. Absence is felt even if he appears in photographs, and he is repeatedly mentioned by name still at the end. The Bourne legacy works in intriguing companions pieces to the Bourne Ultimate and double as an opportunity for Renner to showcase his action hero persona. In the entirety of the Bourne legacy, Aaron Cross is struggling to survive as Colonel Eric Bercy's an effort to wipe out all Operations Outcome agent with government drones in his back, and his supply of camps depleting. Cross alive Dr. Mash sharing a suggest flying to Manila where he can find a life-saving virus. It is a virus that will permanently locking mental enhancement in this body. So once the orientically enhanced operative gets access to this virus, he will no longer be requiring the camps, but obtaining this virus becomes challenging with him losses and brainwash super soldier pursuing him. Moments before the climatic motorcycle of B's legacy ending, Cross managed to infect himself with his life virus. Mark virus takes time to equal it with Cross's system. It is understandable that he will win weak instead. This is what happens despite his best effort to evading Lars Legend and the local police in the Manila. Even he is short and loses consciousness. Sharing managed to kill off Cross, who didn't survive the entire ordeal as he only received flesh bones in his leg and shoulder, as Cross and his sharings escaped safely to start a new life. At the end of the Bourne legacy, by team visits the Manila department where Theodore was heading by catches a glimpse of a mirror on which the words "No More" has been subscribed by a marker hanging next to the mirror, crossing Rostonga text indicating that he no longer required the camps to stay alive. It is obvious that Cross are sharing secret of this as a way of sacking this leg to not her brother anymore. The words show Thea frustration that a man on the run like Cross would fail. The Boney legacy ending finds a continuing claim covering up Heather Trump Julia's past regarding Thea covert operations like Treadstone and a Black Barrier. The narrative is connected with the Bourne Ultimatum arc around former SIM Deputy Director Pamela Dante. Black Barrier supervisor no wasn't recalled at his net to declare that Black Barrier's sole motive was to just hunt down Rock Agent Jason Bourne. Meanwhile, Landy is declared guilty for a treason for leaking classified dressing rooms file to the press. While the movie prevents any action to be taken against Ocean Empire, the truth is that the Black Bear goes beyond just a breaking bone. The first movie, The Bourne Ident, established the right operations. Treadstone was intended to train super spies like Bourne to perform top-secret tasks around the world, with some missions involving the dropping international government and killing the civilian. When Bourne exposed a Redstone, the Bourne supremacy and the Bourne Ultimatum covered the Redstone upgraded successor Black Barrier, which similarly involved sending a physically enhanced agent wedding. Bourne's image ripped Black Barrier operative to go after him. But even if they didn't take him down, a final cover-up in the Bourne legacy makes it clear that Blacker would all still continued for it declassified mission before the Bourne agency. Fans of the franchise only know about the operations Treadstone and the Black Barrier. However, across the backgrounds with Operations Outcome revealed that that had many other missions regarding the super soldiers of covert operative and lore sessions, while be some to give up at the end of the Bourne. Earliest scenes in his control room find to what he Bourne the Jesse sequel that never happened could be a Baraski seemed to be connecting him with all the dead beta programs and the certain operations called Emerald Lake. It is possible that Bourne Legacy 2 would have explored these other reprograms, and the final battle in the Bourne Legacy also involves a chemically brainwashed operative named Applying that Roth Isonet in the CIA program that involved a generic modification for agents. The sequel would have featured a more powerful Cross, as he is no longer dependent on his camp and is enhanced with a live virus. A wild Cross and sharing future travel are left open to interception. At the end of the Bourne Legacy, a sequel could have also fleshed out their partnership further in a number of ways. The Bourne Legacy mirrors that style of the Bourne legendity, much like Jess's Bourne. Iron Cross is hunted by the very agency that he once served. Loyalty cover-ups and operations play equally as significant roles in both cases. However, the Bourne ending makes it a me-glory movie convenience kind of. There is enough potential for a sequel, but it has still managed to wrap across the character arc with the Bourne Legacy working as a standalone conical adventure. The fact that it ends with a mouse hunting a rug extreme way a song, and with all the Bourne movie keeps Bourne's legacy alive even if the main series hero never shows up. Ending of the Bourne Legacy could not guarantee a return for Germany Renurse Cross, but to be for just Bourne Demons faulting as a child ex-operative. The only movie in the Bourne series Nakoa feature Demon. The Bond Legacy is set around the same term as the Bourne Ultimatum ran. It stars as a genetically enhanced CIA agent under the Black Ops program called Operations Outcome. However, many Bourne Ultimatums events leading to public exposure of covered CIA bro Operations Outcome members like Ross must run for life. The situation's only Warner's Cross's independent performances enhancing films call it a game. The Bourne Agency is directed by Tony Glory, who served as a primary second writer for the first three Bronze movie. The 2012 action thriller both a stellar course, including the Oscar nominees Germany Renner and the Edward Norton and the Oscar winner Rachel Vessel, but it was still with mixed review compared to its predecessor via Rotten Tomatoes. Demon's absence is felt even if he appear in the photograph and is repeatedly mentioned by name. Still, the end the Bourne Agency works acts as an intergoing companion piece to the Bourne Major, and it doubles as an opportunity for Reiner to showcases his action hero persona in the entirety of the Bourne legacy. Aaron Cross is struggling to survive as cloner Eric BRC's an effort to wipe out of a person's outcome with government demons on his back and his supply of camps depleting. Cross alive Dr. Matt sharing suggest flying to Manila where he can find a life-saving virus. It is a virus that will permanently locking the mental enhancement in his body. So once the genetically enhanced operative gets access to this virus, he will no longer be requiring this game, but obtaining of this virus becomes challenging. While he rises Osava's brainwashed super soldier pursuing him. Moments before the climatic motorcycle says of the Bourne legacy ending, Cross managed to infect himself with the live virus, but given that the virus takes them to Equarian itself with Cross system, it is understandable that he will be in a weakened state. This is what happened despite his best effort to evade the law agent and the local police and Thea Manula. Even the short and loss as a consciousness sharing managed to kill off. Cross survived the entire order as he only received flesh wounds in his leg and shoulder as Cross and sharing escaped safely to start a new life at the end of the Bourne legacy by visit the Manila apartment where the Joe was hidden by catches a glimpse of a mirror on which the words "No More" have been surprised by a marker hanging next to the mirror area. Cross's dog tags indicating that he no longer requires the camps to start a life. It is obvious that a Cross sharing this way after asking Thea CIA to not bother them anymore. Thea words show his frustration that a man on a run like Cross would feel. The Bond agency ending finds a sick conventionally covering after was recording covered operations like Treadstone and the Black Barrier. The narrative is connected with the Bourne Ultimatum arc around former CHIMA Deputy Director Pamela Landry. Black Barrier supervisor no goes in regard Senate to declare that Black Barrier, the sole motive was to just hunt down rock's legend Jason Bourne. Meanwhile, Landy is declared guilty of reasons for leaking classified 3D files to the press. While this movie prevents any action to taken against Empire, the truth is that Black Barrier goes beyond just striking Bourne. The first movie in the Bourne identity established that operations Treadstone was intended to train super spies like Bourne to perform subsequent tasks around the world, with some missions involving the toppling international government and killing the civilian, while Bourne exposed Treadstone. The Bourne Supremacy and the Bourne Ultimatum covered Stonophagic successor Black Barrier, which similarly involved sending a physically enhanced agent to the CIA's page prompted the Black Barrier operative to go after him, but even if they did take him down, the final covers up in the B-leg makes it clear that a Blacker would have still continued for a reclassified mission before the Bond legacy. Fans of this franchise only know abortive operations Dry Stones and Thea Black Rider Hollow. However, Cross's Thea background with the operation's outcome revealed that the Sim had many other missions regarding the super soldier reigned as covered operative and loyal assassin, while seemed to give up at the end of the Bourne legacy. Earlier seen in this control room for Toy Bourne legacy and sequel that never happened could have as B asks him to connect with him all the big upper programs and certain operations called them bro, like it is possible that the B's legacy too would have explored his this programs and to the respective agents. The final battle in the legacy also involved a chemically been war operative and named theme, implying the Alex is yet another program that involves scientific modification for agents. The sequel would have featured a more powerful Cross as he no longer depended on his camp and his enhance with the life as a virus, while Cross and sharing feature travel and left open to entertain much like Jason's Bourne. Aaron Cross is hunted by the very agency that he on served loyalty covers up, and Muhammad operations play equally significant roles in board cases. However, the Bourne's legacy's ending make the Tony Glory movie conveying and a spin-up. There is enough potential for a sequel, but it still managed to wrap across this character arc with the Bourne legacy working as a standalone comical adventures. The fact that his ends with the movie's hunting track Extreme Way song with all the Bond movie keeps the legacy alive even if the main series hero never shows up. To say the Bourne Ultimatum is a thrill ride and an understatement like the two Bourne films that came before it. It combined high-intensity action sequences with some of the series' most mind-handing plot twisters for nearly 10 years. It also served as our lost looking at Jason Bourne, the scale assassin at the heart of the series. While it was released in 2007, the Bourne medium has actually held up well over the years, thanks in large part to a strong set of performances and a Paul Gass expert directorial. Still, despite its box office success, there may be many who don't really remember how the films ended or still have questions as to what exactly went on. Let's take a look at the ending of the Bourne Ultimatum and delve into Jason Bourne's fate. Of course, this exploration will contain some serious spoiler. One of the predominant names of the entire Bourne film series is Aden, or more specifically the titular character's lack of knowledge about his own. The first two Bourne films saw him grappling with dangerous situation after dangerous situation, all while dealing with the effect of amnesia. Slowly over time he encountered government official and a fellow assassin who helped him put the puzzle pieces together that his name used to David Webb, and then his was an assassin for Treadstone, a CIA operation. We see throughout the first day film and especially in the Bourne Ultimatum that trapping to put together an understanding of who you are and how you become that person is a distorting and experience. Jason has terrifying flashback and struggle to know who is to trust. This tautic slowly unraveling experience come to head in the Bourne Ultimatum as he rushes to learn more about his organ to drug is actively working to kill him before he can learn that truth be abusively, because they know he could use that information to do double damage to their operations. When Jason's family make his way to the facility, he was trained. He is alone that he actually offered himself after the Treadstone, and despite the misgiving close to the containing point for him, he finally knows a key part of his identity, but is not one that is easy to live with, knowing that he chose to contribute the war. Violence point program has to leave the part of his identity that is just born behind. Then he drives off the roof into the East River. At first it appeared that David has died. However, in the first closing moment, we learn from a news report that his body has not been recovered yet, and then we see his seeming Greek for a lifeless body spring into action and swim away. Had the series wrapped to his room, we would have been left knowing he survives. But he's also left the door open for the Bond story to continue, passing the Bond to Jesse. We saw how a door converter operation were affected from the information Justin lifted had no letting it stone, and his next incarnation operations Black Bear. Then he was David fighting to learn more detail about his identity, including about his own father's trash to throne in 2016's Bourne. So leaving the closing moments of the Bourne Ultimatum with an ellipsis rather than a period was pretty much the perfect ending, one that subtly reminded fans that David's quest to find himself might never be truly over, unless you too were suffering from the discolorative anemia for some portion of this early 2008. Chances are you know the basics of the Bourne story. A hyper-competent covert operative losses his memories on missions gone wrong and has to go on a run from his own government and his former superior from Treadstone, a program that trained him first on a European and then eventually on a Boeing adventure released in 2002. The Bourne identity launched to a franchise that eventually spanned 5 films and bumped its star. Made the monster Hollywood from a prompting up and come to one of the worst bigger movies to star the films of the U.S. intelligence apparent felt timely and relevant in the work of the September 11th attack, when suddenly there was so much more focusing being placed on the men with stylist attempt to keep itself secure at the end of the war's identity. Bourne confronted 2 men behind his pursuit, told former Treadstone's director Alexander pushes him to remember his past and return to the fold. Bourne refuses, but he does not kill. Ida enters his resignation bars and escape to the clan inn. Killed by the man in one of the assassins he activated. Bourne, who is now acting on the Order of Coins boss, directed the word about it, but there's a story for the sequel and the final moment of the Bourne identity. The hero, there's at least a temporary happily ending. We here at the website have received so many letters about the editing style of the Bourne movies that we felt obligated to share a complaint. Is there a cinematographer joke in the Bourne Ultimatum 2007? The entire movie shaky within an instant, quasi-cam affection except for one shot. This is short as pop provided of Jason's pair through a handheld Ellen Power Sculpt 12-point type on a document a few hundred feet distant. If there was one shot in a movie show elastically and vibrate, is this only a care to ask your power that if this is an inside joke? Home west for my home for Hollywood. He is a film editor and a huge film buff, and I saw the Bourne Ultimatum last night. While we like the storyline and the acting was great, the constant cuts every few seconds with high jerky and held camera work and pointless bands of zoom with all the terribly distraction somewhere in that movie where some the great action, but when goodly make out was going on. You should warn your viewers about movies like this. They should be rated Ms for motion sickness. The latest Bourne movie, Bourne Ultimatum, was okay but not as good as the first one. The biggest problem was the shaky camera gimmick. In the first movie, everything was clear and I could tell that they were really driving up or a little car. Johnster or the fighting guys were really swagging their arm. It felt like if I could just tee it on, it would see some amazing stuff like Jackie's chance quickly hands up. This last movie they could have been doing jumping jack while the camera jerked all around and I would never have known. It seems to me just lazy and did not want to learn all of the fancy move, so they just stood around and made the camera do all the moving. I had to sit about 4 rows back up from the front of the theater. Maybe if I had been further back the shaky camera wouldn't have been so annoying. I might give the movie another try. Will it comes on the video? Maybe. Zorn seeming a pleasant healthier. While did your review of the bony super messy not point out the gross execution of hand camera shakiness? The movie is great. I did enjoy it despite the fact that all that sickness and amateurish editing. I went out of the theater wondering how a professional critic can discredit that a fact or slight present is an artistic effect. I'm trying to understand but I can't seem and announce of artist time in a movie editing. You think it's simply been wrong. A major or a director should not be able to get away with this. Love the story, love the acting, but God, next time I will change a twist before going to see a Green Rose movie. A great Johnstone Pier. The Bourne films are placed as great action movie with strong story hangers. The letter may be true but I think they should when it come to be action watch again some of the great action films of all time. Writers of The Lost Ark or Mad Max, The Road Warrior. These masterwork of choreography have excellent shots. The lady where actually appreciate the situations unfolding. It seemed to me Bourne makers don't have the skill to put it together well-designed action sequences. They make a fault baseless a surprising short sequel that creates a illusion of intense section. Frankly, it just gives me a heartache. How frustrating to not truly understand what is happening on the screen. I love all of the movie, the story and the action. But after the last 2 installment, I left it with such a headache. It is really unnecessary to shake the camera so violently during those fighting sequences and action scenes. It made it nearly impossible to follow. It would have been more impressive to actually watch the choreography in the scene. You just don't see the artistic matter here. I can't accept the reasons that the camera represent Bourne situations and the state of mind. Let the camera represent the audiences in the clear storyline, acting and the choreography. I can tell that story. What is your take? When did they start teaching in the film school? That is secure the camera. The more artistic the film. It's hard to believe that you can watch a movie such as the Bourne movie with a mad doing no to be annoyed or mention in your review all that it might be in your best interesting to take drama or is walking into a wall on your way out of the theater. How about having the talent to film an action scene instead of just running behind with a camera? For all I could tell, Jackson's Bourne might have been Bourne and Chum's had an action scene that were unwatchable. The intentionally shaky filming of the action scene was excessive to the point of being abusing toward their advances. It's sham because already the bloated situation are becoming the hack. Would have guessed Matt Damon could be so believable. Tony Wiki mindful I just saw Bourne Ultimatum at the Sheep with a friend. I had seen it before she was seeing it for the first time. Both times I was brought close to Nosa by Thea insists tricking for the camera, and it was the same for my friend who had to close her eyes a couple times to get back on an even kill. I can see why it may be used in the action sequences, but even in the slower sequences they kept the camera moving. I know the theory is that it's simultaneous how the human eye will move you around, but my eyes will still move you anywhere. So why do they feel it unnecessary to do it for me? Close-ups make it worse. Why do so many of the newer director fiction movie come out with film with such choppy jumpy camera work? I found it Bourne Ultimatum unwashable mode. Johan Ford and Sama Big Pair have employed this tenty camera work that left all action in the DC Blue celebrating the action scene with a precious camera show and his contributions of the stuntman. I think not. How can we stop this growing trend of Chico-provoking camera work? Having just gotten home from a second viewing of the Bourne Ultimatum and seeing the letter of complaint from a viewer, I feel it necessary to defend the cinematography of a standing action movie. Ultimatum works all well because of the documentary head camera style and the pinpoint fast editing. We are meant to constantly follow Bourne through his adventure. The movie is primarily about emotion, one to run, one to save, jumping, attacking, defending. Bourne things through physical expression. We as an audiences have to feel his idol, his sweet, his obsession. The editing and the camera by the actor side whirl through the action of the films and make that action, I guess. It is not unlike the opening of a 4 different film Saving the Private Room. In both cases, the camera becomes the audience's eyes as we were who writes next to the hero going through hell. What note from Ida the discussions provoke their former film scholar David Well to write what is the most insightful and helpful pieces I have read on the fast-cutting handheld style. If you are area interested, I strongly urge you to have a look at Jason Bourne assassin and detective actor surveys his exotic questions in a grainy flashback early on his the Bourne Ultimatum, and it's just as early it could be an appeal to the audiences, or when we kindly comment to a film says with a hero just as interest as James Bond but loaded with and more real regret over the beast he has become. More preciously is this creeper like Mr. Bourne compelling the Anna Forrest to follow him to the end of the world as he seeks to break the final locks on his clouded memory and discover what drove him to take on the job of ultra-secret hitman. The answer seemed to be an unethical yes based on the critical plots lavished on the third entry of Fairy Bourne saga in the current real-world climate, with a spire thriller that can inject just a simgon for realism into the usual outlandish antics, and it does not hurt if they don't insult our intelligence outright. Thus we have the Bourne into medium and nifty piece of deep filmmaking that is nearly precise action. The action thrillers macking mechanics like a shark, the life survives on constant moment and one great last and a virtue drop after another. Enthusiasts who have not seen the first film their own identity, anyone supremacy, the acted by Dog Lemon who also serve as Thea guarding her behind is all we have to make do with some blendy flashback. The story is truly secondary here. Just to think of the Bourne as a Willie Mouse in a big bait CIA, his former employer as a agent threatening to sink its class into him, and you are ready to sit back and have your eyeball see a different handled style that is the fast becoming a green roses calling out, which is not to say that the ultimate is undisciplined or a migrant nightmare within the constante who chases the knobbing moment after Cameron Ross manages to build a geography and dispense natural detail popping out to groanas even in the midst of the giant crowds on a train or platform or among the mountain rooftops of a city. Happiest when our hero is in direct peril. The film's whole major action sequences are adrenaline dream. The first is meant inside London's water lesions ovarian Bourne Mandios a nosy British reporter Simon Rose and avoid the merry close circuit camera and agent on detail. Armed with only a cell phone and a pretty natural ability to sense danger, Bourne is simultaneously avoid and get a job on his f's, and as he does so sequences becomes a masterclass in thought sequences, choreography, movement and tension. There must have been an army of editor working around the clock, only this one, and the result are the second brave steps that pieces ice afoot amongst the allies, and the forever drops with the insurable smash of the hitman crossing on his bed. It culminates in a unknown fist fight in a bathroom that puts a similar moment in the Casino Royale to scam. Ironically enough, Gary Powers is a flat choreographer for both films. Sequences alone would be worth the price of the admission, but it's a shame that only I must consider that the rest of the film. The Bourne movies have followed a certain inverse progression as the film has become more accomplished with each entry, and the story has become less and less interesting. Doug Liman, who directed the Bourne Identity, is nothing only green across as a filmmaker, and yet the film first, which also had the advantage of introducing the mystery of Bourne, had a dog-ear soulfulness about the despite the wretch chases and shootout. What will linger from the Bourne Identity are the character's moment that Ming will demand any horror on Frank Madden's face when she witnessed Bourne making the first to kill. The registration is immorality, a worn price when he groans. Look at what they make you give the pit bull protein a Chris Copper operator when he confronts Bourne and throws the amnesia confusion right back at him, in contrast to Gross's supremacy Antonian action scene, and even the rockers all seemed a bit too much by deflive emotional payoff as our old Bourne cameo after face to face with the orphaned Italy original diplomat he assassinated with the film's final showed every Bourne emerging on the seat raid in New York City. Back on his home to have such a speak, which seemed to prime the foreigners collisions of intricate emotional involvement. Disappointingly, Ultimatum puts a hero back in the deep freeze. Diamond seemed a bite to call as a trained assistant in Identity, but he has grown into the role, and one can read his regret and uncertainty within his years. Silence too bad that sin writer only Guillory has run out of conflict, or I'm guilty to a feel of those silence limit maybe a couple dozen lessons lines through the intro film. Bourne as a character has never been more or distant, save as the upcoming missing little speech in which he proclaimed he sees the face of the people he killed in Dam's Monterwicked delivery. He might as well as talking about a tomorrow weather forecast. The only a shock of the humanity arrives in the form of the Julia style, and even certain as a secured wit apparently had an affair in the past, which is not even a hinted at any previous movie has got. The delivery I was difficult for how area you. There is one moment in the film in which emotional disclosure is even broached. Bourne's ultimatum bounces from local to a local just long enough for Gross to show in a disinterested short of the city before cutting to the next phase. Confusingly, the actions began in Europe before finally relocating to New York City, as he chronically from the proceeding from the gate judged. It might have been a neat movie had filmmakers did not regulated the Sammy Getty bone led from the supremacy. Also, we are exposed to yet another conspiracy within this layer, as Badho versions tries to eliminate the bone before the good Hongo Pamela landed. She can be directed, that is essential, reduced to a standing around and wringing her hands who can make contact with him and discover the ultra bones from army officer to a black specialist. So once again we get a sushi control home film video sagging about Donna between man and a twice and a short leaves, and the dialogue that seem to be movie action glitches. I needed information and I need it yesterday. Sophistications and cutting edge bio-audio filmmaking. The uploading of a moon arrest on some awfully hairy advice in cremating the classifier documents kept in a safe. A newspaper reporter and he threw out sources your smiley novels which perfected the art of the mind game. Spices engaging each other to especially through smart as well as physical aid. City Ultimatum single drum god sensual assault. The timely action hits in New York City. The center can no longer hold the film, winding down with a go to chases Daddy Miradu in the supermassive without adding anything new, and a mushy confirmation with the descriptive character Fanny annual program Bourne in the first film Placia. Suffice to say that the final revelation was compared to the XOV in May which preceded it, one is left with the underwhelming thought also has passed Isa pretty much what we expected, what with an allusion to Abong-Gab over Thayer-Hare's getting the drunken tank of water and Green Rose's status as the first film to direct a serious picture about 9/11, a United 9301 suspect that is reaching for a political significance in Fessy closing passage which seems a bit much given the film races of the story in identity. Lehman took an almost regular approach. Bourne was capable of doing amazing thing, but they did not discount the possibility of the oars juggling albeit at the craziness of the daring too. Greengrass on the other hand Rice committed to the seriousness of it all. As Bourne escaped to freedom and the inevitable sequel, one must ask where do we go from here? The Bourne series has come a full circle. It began with a man minus his memory out as the ocean and Isa conclude with a short of a man minus a personality swimming away as an example of buffered up action. Zarma the Bourne Ultimatum fits the ball where there is a remarkable Hollywood Adscaria sequel are one of the most controversial and criticized things in storytelling. Too often they happen because of the marketplace pressure to strike the irona while it's hard and they turn appreciative fans into money business. Say wise it is great idea, but is that kind of thinking that drain all creativity from an artist's sexy project. The Bourne Ultimatum was the third man final of Jason Bourne novel written by its original author Robert I. guesses the Bourne equally into the original Star Wars run Alto 9 other Bourne's novel were rewritten by the addict one less special from 2004-2013 despite not being a second-hand material. The Bourne Ultimatum is a textbook case of why is equal area such a head creature sometime at least it had a delicacy to raise interesting questions. After claiming his name Isa Europe, something catches Jason Bourne on the train right back to his hideout. A wild journalism from the goddess named Simon Rose Paddy Cohen the existence of Operation Black Barrier and attaches the name to it. Smelling a fresh lead to his past, Bourne organizes a meeting which was in London. Unfortunately, the journalist is killed before the end. Bourne can allude its drill, but here is an important hint behind Neil Daniel Isa name in his oblation like barrier a contact sleep. Nothing better to do than hide or pull the will on his mysterious past. Jason's Bourne decide to chase Daniela around the globe and get some answer as the usual in the Bourne universes. When you're looking for something there's an awareness a door unwanted stuff a failing on your melon step. This only irritation. I never read a novel is so secretly because it does not have a valid reason to exist except to give a Justin Bourne with peace of mind while the Bourne supremacy sported a well-packaged plot. The Bourne Ultimatum is a series of long and winding action scenes supposed to lead to one predictable conclusion. Learn who Jason Bourne really is. The Bourne Rose scene in the train station is clever and well-paced, yet it never frankens and is more of a vapid display, a visual storytelling than a key scene. It would have been interesting to see what a less showing director than Paul Greengrass could have done with it. I spent my entire viewing of the Bourne Ultimatum, frustrated that answer to Bourne's true identity would not come fast enough because they were the only thing I could expect out of it. So, what should we expect out sequel and more particularly a trial release? Wearing the tone and developing a mind of its own. It's a winning bet. Take Lord of the Ring for example. The Return of the King is such a striking final because it does not try to outpick the Two Tower and leave Hansa better as the hallmark white scaly event of the series. It focused on the dramatic implication of destroying dying instead. The problem with the Justina Bond movie is that they all mesh into one thanks to the overbearing presence of director Paul and his overkill approach to milking an action scene to its last job. If I did not know the Bourne trilogy was based on 3 actual novels, you can easily make me believe it was just one and that it was stand way too thin. So what we learn from Fessy meaningless error in action filmmaking is sometimes too much money and too many egos is tangled together just make for a flat and confusing project. The Jason Bourne movies also were an interesting lesson in salesmanship. Get a star, release the movie ad and to generate a minimal buzz, and you will create added value to something uninteresting. The Bourne Ultimatum wrapped just about very loose angle in the Jason Bourne story, yet failed to create one that had its own legs. Would not it to be great title for the next Bourne novel, The Bourne Universe? The time we are going into space. Taking notes. Matt Damon scoring Albert Fee 16 minutes track his pass for the CIA also Operation Black Player come to head and the agency was disparagingly took over to track. What we think wrapping conclusion into the Bourne trilogy prior to religious series with a new leading man sees a lot of the mysterium in the super fudge of Jason's family revealed as Tribe Joe Sr. He became an instant classic of the Greengrass actor Harris against Glass Asilla. Were you not a fan of his patent Yaki Cam style is a super messy, you will have leave this one equally disappointed. Action-packed Laban Western. The Bourne Ultimatum is a terrific film in its own right and a conclusion to a trilogy of expressional storytelling. So you come to the third film of an established franchise, and typically you would be grading in the gear of family and leaving a story with merely a passing a resemblance to over-derivation of Theta which has come before, not so Ultimatum that had in concluding chapter so far in Ahmad as King of Just Born, the 6 a.m. operative trying to uncover his true identity while being pursued by Thusia wanting to keep him acquired. The Bourne Ultimatum might well be called the Bourne Supremacy 2.1 because the film picks up immediately, and I do mean immediately, after the end of the Supremacy Loki, a conclusion where Bourne apologizes to a young woman for the death of her parents by his hand. Tony Glory scripted. You must speculate that he was not the sole writer here, with Scott Burns and Georgia Noafis brought into message the detail into shape effect. No loss and no glory. After Effect tries to tie up all of the loose ends and story bits established in the previous two films, and it's worth nothing that after watching all three films in rapid succession it is easy to spot links and disambiguities between here, giving all the three films a sense of compilation. Ultimatum is essentially just Bourne ice in panic. He is finding peace with himself and trying to find repentance for what he perceives as only having murdered all those people in the name of the CIA. Does it work without Frank Potent as the emotional center, or even without an enemy he can face down? Is Bonnie's final journey something of a letdown, or is it, as I hope to slide, a worldwide conclusion to now a saga that Liberty Resolution audiences will find appealing? Jason Bourne still only run in the Moscow after tracking down the date of his first two victims capture and despair. Meanwhile, the British journalist Rose Reedus agent in Italy for information port training and the Treadstone descendant and operation known as Black Barrier. This triggered OS analysis interaction and Justin's Bourne visiting period to meet with Mary's brother Daniel in a small room, and informs him Arted also becomes involved again as he tried to get the bottom of Black Various, meaning in his amnesia is killed by Black Bear assassin, leaving the Bourne with no option but no track to see information in turn, who has no flea. A microbody kidnaps a sneaky person and takes her to Morocco, where he located the information needed to understand his past. A CIA doctor based in New York, inflating New York. Byron Ice is struck by the Sing force led by Thea deputy character. No way Pamela Lange Jones again involved. Bourne sees that there is a strange relationship, and Thea later wants to bury Black Barrier from the public, while Lange wants to blow it wide open and reveal the truth. Thea depression is a covered Black Ops with no oversight as Boney gets closer to uncovering the truth. He has violent vision, a flashback to his training. A film also offers supremacy delivery excitement. Ultimatum takes place as if Supremacy crossing credit never occurred. Visually, stoically and dramatically, both Supremacy and Ultimatum are same film cut in half. There is virtually no noticeable drop in quality. Director Paul Greengrass returns to the franchise with the same energetic filmmaking style that made the Bourne Supremacy so compelling. Composer John Apollo once again delivers an outstanding musical score, while editor Christopher Rouse keeps the fast-paced action flowing seamlessly. Joan Allen and Julia Stiles enjoy much larger and more significant roles than they did in the previous two films combined. Meanwhile, David Strathairn and Scott Glenn make strong additions to the cast as senior CIA officials involved in the Treadstone and Blackbriar operations. Paddy Considine and Albert Finney also bring depth and authenticity to the story. Even in the smallest roles, Greengrass surrounds himself with talented actors who elevate the material and make every scene feel believable. Greengrass transforms what could have been a standard action thriller into something far more cinematic. His signature handheld camera work, rapid editing, and intense close-up shots may not appeal to every viewer, but they create a gripping sense of urgency and realism. The film delivers thrilling chase sequences, expertly staged action scenes, and relentless suspense from beginning to end. Jason Bourne's journey does not conclude with the Bourne supremacy, nor should it, because many questions about his mysterious past remain unanswered. The Bourne Ultimatum serves as both Bourne's search for redemption and his quest for revenge. More importantly, it explores the realization that Bourne never truly wanted to become the killer he was trained to be. The film gradually uncovers the CIA's brainwashing and behavioral conditioning program, offering a clearer understanding of how he became an assassin. Although it leaves some questions open, the story provides enough answers to give Bourne's journey meaningful emotional closure. One of the film's most thought-provoking ideas is that Bourne willingly joined the program, believing he was serving his country. After losing his memory, however, he discovers the terrible consequences of his choices and ultimately rejects the life he once accepted. The film uses this internal conflict as the emotional core of the story, highlighting themes of identity, guilt, and personal responsibility. Paul Greengrass's direction remains as confident and effective as it was in the Bourne supremacy. His camera stays tightly focused on Bourne's mission while also following the CIA's increasingly desperate attempts to capture or eliminate him. The agency is never portrayed as completely incompetent, but the film does expose the moral compromises and questionable decisions made in the name of national security. Noah Vosen and Ezra Kramer are intelligent and determined adversaries, supported by highly trained operatives willing to carry out dangerous orders without hesitation. Released during the years following the events of 9/11, the film also reflects growing public concerns about government surveillance, intelligence operations, and the limits of national security. It raises important questions about how far a government should be willing to go in the name of protecting its citizens, making its themes feel both relevant and thought-provoking. Greengrass directs every sequence with remarkable confidence, taking audiences across numerous international locations while maintaining the grounded, realistic style that defines the series. Unlike many globe-trotting spy films that emphasize luxury and glamour, the Bourne Ultimatum presents its settings as authentic, lived in environments that enhance the realism of the story. Matt Damon once again delivers an outstanding performance as Jason Bourne. While the character remains reserved and emotionally guarded, Damon effectively conveys Bourne's determination, intelligence, and inner conflict. His search for the truth is not only a personal journey but also a way of asking larger questions about morality, loyalty, and the price of serving one's country. The film also hints at a deeper connection between Bourne and Nicky Parsons, suggesting a shared past that adds emotional depth to their relationship without distracting from the main story. Julia Stiles has a much more substantial role this time, giving Nicky Parsons greater importance in Bourne's mission. Joan Allen spends much of the film navigating the political tensions within the CIA while quietly questioning the agency's methods. David Strathairn delivers a commanding performance as Noah Vosen, the determined CIA official leading the hunt for Bourne. Like Conklin before him, Vosen has his own agenda, which gradually unravels as Bourne gets closer to the truth. Albert Finney appears as Dr. Albert Hirsch, whose role is crucial in revealing Bourne's past, while Paddy Considine portrays the journalist whose investigation into Blackbriar places him directly in the crosshairs of the CIA's deadly operations. Together, the talented cast helps make the Bourne Ultimatum a satisfying, intelligent, and thrilling conclusion to one of the finest action trilogies ever made. John Powell returns to compose this score, bringing back many of the musical themes and cues from the previous films. His music gives the Bourne Ultimatum a strong sense of continuity, tying the trilogy together while emphasizing Jason Bourne's emotional journey of self-discovery. Powell's energetic and emotionally charged soundtrack perfectly complements the film's relentless pace, and his work across the trilogy ranks among the finest action film scores ever created. It's difficult to imagine the Bourne franchise without his outstanding contribution. Christopher Rouse's editing is equally impressive, delivering a fast-paced and suspenseful experience that keeps viewers constantly engaged. The rooftop chase in Tangier is particularly breathtaking, while the action sequences in Waterloo Station, London, and Madrid brilliantly capture the frantic intensity of Bourne's desperate attempts to escape both assassins and the CIA agents pursuing him across Europe. Paul Greengrass's filmmaking style, however, is not for everyone. If you dislike handheld camera work, rapid editing, and extremely tight framing, you may struggle with the visual style of these films. The camera is almost always in motion, often hiding behind people, furniture, or buildings, making conversations feel partially obscured. Focus shifts rapidly, sometimes revealing only a character's eyes or part of their face before moving again. While this can occasionally feel distracting, it also heightens the tension and reinforces the secretive, paranoid world the characters inhabit. Since much of the story revolves around surveillance, hidden identities, and covert operations, the restless camera work effectively reflects that atmosphere. Although some viewers may find Greengrass's style overly chaotic, it serves the story remarkably well. The Bourne Ultimatum brings Jason Bourne's journey to a satisfying and powerful conclusion. As suggested in the earlier films, the trilogy feels carefully structured from beginning to end, as though it was always intended to tell one complete story. Whether or not that was the original plan is ultimately irrelevant because the finished result is exceptionally rewarding. The film is thrilling entertainment at its very best. Watching Matt Damon drive a stolen car backward off the roof of a multi-story parking garage during a high-speed chase is worth the price of admission alone. The movie also delivers several exciting plot twists and expertly crafted action scenes that maintain suspense until the very end. While it may not feature a car chase quite as iconic as the one in The Bourne Supremacy, it more than makes up for it with intelligent storytelling and relentless momentum. Watching all three Bourne films close together makes The Bourne Ultimatum an especially satisfying finale, showcasing outstanding performances from the entire cast. Where The Bourne Ultimatum truly excels is in the speed and intensity with which its story unfolds. Director Paul Greengrass maintains a relentless pace as Bourne constantly stays one step ahead of those hunting him. His signature handheld camera work and rapid editing create an exhilarating, almost documentary-like realism. The film occasionally slows down just enough to let audiences catch their breath before launching into another gripping sequence. The story moves effortlessly across Moscow, Paris, London, Madrid, and Tangier without relying on flashy travel montages or unnecessary exposition. Instead, each location feels authentic and serves the story naturally. The supporting cast is excellent, with strong performances throughout, while David Strathairn delivers a particularly memorable performance as the determined CIA official Noah Vosen. Joan Allen also returns, adding depth and credibility to the intelligence community portrayed in the film. Comparisons with the James Bond franchise are inevitable, but the two series ultimately have more differences than similarities. Interestingly, Casino Royale adopted a grittier, more grounded style around the same time, moving away from the traditional gadgets and over-the-top spectacle associated with Bond. It's easy to see how both franchises influenced one another, particularly in their realistic action sequences and emotionally driven storytelling. Greengrass keeps the violence focused and purposeful. Despite the film's intense action, the body count remains surprisingly low, and there is very little graphic gore. Nevertheless, the hand-to-hand combat scenes are brutally effective. Bourne fights with efficiency and precision, while the camera stays extremely close to the action. intentionally creating a sense of confusion and urgency without becoming overwhelming. Beyond the action, the film raises several thought-provoking questions. Who is the real enemy? How can governments be held accountable when operating in the name of national security? Do the ends ever justify the means? These themes give the film far more substance than a typical action thriller. Ideas that once seemed fictional in movies like Enemy of the State now feel far more believable in a post-9/11 world. One sequence even bears a striking resemblance to the tragic police shooting of an innocent man in London in July 2005, highlighting how closely the film reflects real-world concerns. Like any action movie, The Bourne Ultimatum requires audiences to suspend disbelief. Fortunately, the relentless pacing leaves little time to question every plot convenience. Bourne repeatedly finds seemingly impossible escape routes from heavily secured locations, while the CIA often makes questionable decisions under pressure. Even though the agency produces highly disciplined operatives through the Treadstone program, some of its senior leaders display remarkably poor judgment when faced with unexpected situations. By nature, Jason Bourne remains a solitary character. Unlike many action heroes, he has no major romantic storyline in this film. Julia Stiles returns as Nikki Parsons, providing Bourne with a trusted ally rather than a love interest, while Joan Allen's Pamela Landy continues to serve as one of the story's strongest and most principal characters. Their performances add emotional depth without distracting from the central narrative. Overall, The Bourne Ultimatum stands as one of the greatest action thrillers ever made, combining exceptional direction, superb performances, breathtaking action, a memorable score by John Powell, and intelligent storytelling. It delivers a thrilling and deeply satisfying conclusion to one of modern cinema's finest action trilogies.